One of Australia's largest arms deals in its history is with a country that isn't the United States or Britain, and China is watching in horror. While Beijing was busy threatening Taiwan and militarizing the South China Sea, Canberra quietly partnered with South Korea to acquire next-generation tanks, artillery, and infantry fighting vehicles that will transform the Australian Army into the most lethal ground force in the Indo-Pacific. This is the story of how Korean firepower is turning Australia into China's worst nightmare on land. Welcome to the Doctrine of War. Today we're diving into the Australia-South Korea defense partnership that's reshaping the balance of military power across the Pacific. We're talking about K2 Black Panther tanks that can fire on the move with pinpoint accuracy, K9 Thunder self-propelled howitzers that can strike targets 40 kilometers away, and Redback infantry fighting vehicles designed for the exact kind of high-intensity conflict that China is preparing for. This isn't just a shopping spree, this is Australia building an army that can fight and win in the 21st century. The Korean connection. Why Australia chose Seoul over Washington. Let's start with the numbers that have Beijing's military planners losing sleep. In 2022, Australia announced it would acquire 129 K9 Thunder self-propelled howitzers and 15 K10 ammunition resupply vehicles from South Korea's Hanwha Defense. Then came the bombshell. 129 Redback infantry fighting vehicles from Hanwha, beating out German and Korean competitors. And the crown jewel, up to 75 K2 Black Panther main battle tanks, making Australia the first export customer for South Korea's most advanced armored vehicle. The total value of these deals exceeds $7 billion Australian dollars, representing the largest land warfare modernization program in Australian history. But the really interesting question is, why South Korea? Why not buy American M1 Abrams tanks, German Leopards, or British equipment? The answer reveals everything about Australia's strategic calculus and its preparation for potential conflict with China. South Korean defense equipment offers something unique. Combat-proven technology designed specifically for high-intensity warfare against a numerically superior adversary. South Korea lives under the constant threat of North Korean invasion. The Korean Peninsula is one of the most militarized places on Earth, with millions of troops, thousands of artillery pieces, and decades of planning for total war concentrated in a relatively small area. Korean defense companies don't design equipment for counterinsurgency or peacekeeping. They design it to survive and win against massed armor, artillery barrages, and overwhelming firepower. That's exactly what Australia needs. The Australian Defence Force has spent the last 2 decades focused on counter-terrorism operations in Afghanistan and Iraq, peacekeeping in the Pacific, and humanitarian assistance. These missions required different capabilities: mobility, sustainability, cultural engagement. But the strategic environment has fundamentally changed. China's military modernization, its aggressive posture in the South China Sea, its threats against Taiwan, and its economic coercion of Australia have forced Canberra to refocus on high-intensity warfighting. The K2 Black Panther is arguably the most advanced main battle tank in service anywhere in the world. It features a 1,500 horsepower engine that gives it a power-to-weight ratio superior to the American M1 Abrams or German Leopard 2. It can accelerate from 0 to 32 km per hour in 8.7 seconds. Insane for a 55-ton armored vehicle. The hydropneumatic suspension system can raise, lower, or tilt the tank to improve firing angles or navigate difficult terrain. The tank can even kneel to reduce its profile or lean into slopes. The main gun is a 120mm smoothbore cannon capable of firing a range of ammunition including armor-piercing fin-stabilized discarding sabot rounds that can punch through 650mm of steel armor at 2,000 meters. The fire control system uses an automatic target tracking system that can engage moving targets while the tank itself is moving at high speed. Hit probability on a moving target at 2,000 meters exceeds 90%. This isn't point and shoot. This is intelligent weapon systems that compensate for range, wind, temperature, barrel wear, and target movement in milliseconds. The armor package combines conventional steel armor with explosive reactive armor and advanced composite materials. The tank can withstand hits from rocket-propelled grenades, anti-tank guided missiles, and even other tank main guns at typical combat ranges. An active protection system can detect incoming missiles and projectiles, then automatically engage them with countermeasures before impact. This is defensive technology that didn't exist a generation ago. Now it's standard equipment. If you're starting to understand why Australia is investing billions in Korean firepower to transform its army, hit that like button and subscribe to Doctrine of War. We're bringing you the real story behind the military buildups reshaping global security, and your support helps us continue this work. The K9 Thunder self-propelled howitzer is equally impressive. This is a 155mm artillery system mounted on a tracked chassis with a fully automated loading system. The crew of 5 can fire up to 6 rounds per minute in burst mode, or maintain a sustained rate of 2 to 3 rounds per minute. Maximum range with standard ammunition is 40 kilometers. With rocket-assisted projectiles, it extends beyond 50 kilometers. This means Australian artillery can strike targets deep in enemy territory while remaining safely behind friendly lines. The automated fire control system allows the K9 to receive targeting data, calculate firing solutions, aim the gun, load the round, and fire, all with minimal crew input. From receiving a fire mission to rounds landing on target takes less than 60 seconds. In modern warfare where counter-battery fire can destroy artillery positions within minutes of them firing, this shoot-and-scoop capability is essential for survival. The K9 can fire its mission and relocate before enemy counterfire arrives. The Redback infantry fighting vehicle is designed to transport and support infantry in high-threat environments. It carries up to 8 dismounts plus a crew of 3, protected by armor that can withstand 30mm cannon fire and mine blasts. The turret mounts a 30mm autocannon with a coaxial 7.62mm machine gun and provisions for anti-tank guided missiles. This isn't a battlefield taxi. This is a combat vehicle designed to fight alongside tanks and provide direct fire support to infantry. The strategic significance of these acquisitions goes well beyond technical specifications. Australia is building an army optimized for expeditionary operations in the Indo-Pacific. The geography of potential conflict zones, Northern Australia, Papua New Guinea, the Indonesian archipelago, the Philippines, requires forces that can deploy rapidly, sustain themselves with minimal logistics, and deliver overwhelming firepower in short, decisive engagements. South Korean equipment excels in these scenarios. The K2 tank was designed for the mountainous, varied terrain of the Korean peninsula, similar to the topography of northern Australia and island Southeast Asia. The K9 howitzer was designed for rapid deployment and high mobility, critical in the vast distances of the Indo-Pacific theater. The Redback was designed for mechanized infantry operations where dismounted troops need to work closely with armor and artillery, exactly the combined arms warfare that modern doctrine emphasizes. There's also a crucial industrial dimension. South Korea isn't just selling Australia weapons, it's transferring technology and building local manufacturing capability. Hanwha is establishing production facilities in Australia, training Australian workers, and creating a sovereign defense industrial base. This means Australia can maintain, upgrade, and potentially produce these systems domestically rather than depending on foreign supply chains during a crisis. This is strategic autonomy. If conflict erupts in the Indo-Pacific and global supply chains fracture, Australia needs the ability to sustain its military forces independently. Korean partners have been willing to share technology and build local capability in ways that American and European suppliers often resist. The Korean defense industry sees Australia as a gateway to the broader Indo-Pacific market and is willing to invest in long-term partnerships rather than just one-off sales. The timeline is also important. These Korean systems are being delivered now, in the late 2020s and early 2030s, the exact window when tensions with China are highest and the risk of conflict over Taiwan peaks. American and European defense contractors often have order backlogs stretching a decade or more. South Korean manufacturers can deliver capable systems on accelerated timelines, giving Australia the capability it needs when it needs it. Interoperability with American troops is another factor. Korean equipment uses NATO standard ammunition, communication systems, and operational doctrines. Australian K2 tanks can operate seamlessly alongside American M1 Abrams. Australian K9 howitzers can integrate into American fire support networks. This interoperability is absolutely critical for the alliance warfare that would characterize any Indo-Pacific conflict. The China factor: building an army to fight the People's Liberation Army. Now let's talk about why these specific capabilities matter in the context of deterring China. The People's Liberation Army ground force is the largest army on Earth with over 915,000 active personnel, thousands of tanks and armored vehicles, and artillery systems that outnumber the entire Australian Defence Force. In any direct ground conflict, Australia would be outnumbered and outgunned. Why is Australia investing in tanks and artillery? Because modern warfare isn't about numbers, it's about lethality, precision, and combined arms integration. Australia isn't preparing to invade mainland China. That would be military suicide and strategic insanity. What Australia is preparing for is a very specific set of scenarios where Chinese ground forces might threaten Australian interests or where Australian forces might need to operate in contested environments against Chinese opposition. Scenario 1. The Northern Australia Defence. While a Chinese invasion of the Australian mainland remains highly unlikely, the possibility of Chinese Special Operations Forces, airborne troops, or marine forces conducting raids or limited incursions on northern Australian territory cannot be dismissed. Chinese military writings discuss the concept of informatized local wars, limited conflicts with specific objectives short of total war. If China wanted to pressure Australia during a Taiwan crisis, sabotaging critical infrastructure in northern Australia would create strategic dilemmas for Canberra. K2 tanks and Redback infantry fighting vehicles provide the rapid reaction capability to respond to such incursions with overwhelming force. These systems can be airlifted to forward operating bases, deploy rapidly across northern Australia's rough terrain, and engage enemy forces with firepower that light infantry simply cannot match. A single K2 tank has more combat power than an entire infantry company. A squadron of K2s supported by Redback IFVs and K9 artillery can destroy an enemy battalion. Scenario 2. Expeditionary operations in island Southeast Asia. If conflict erupts over Taiwan, it likely won't remain confined to the Taiwan Strait. China might attempt to secure strategic positions across the first island chain, places like the Philippines, Indonesia, or Papua New Guinea, to create buffer zones and complicate American and Allied responses. If Chinese forces occupied key islands or infrastructure in these countries, Australia might need to conduct expeditionary operations to evict them. This is exactly what Korean armored vehicles are designed for. The K2 tank can be transported by C-17 strategic airlifters and deployed directly into combat zones. The K9 howitzer provides long-range fire support that can suppress Chinese forces while Australian infantry secures objectives. The Redback supplies troops to the fight with enough protection and firepower to operate in high-threat environments. This is expeditionary mechanized warfare, something the Australian Army has never had the capability to conduct at scale. Scenario 3. Supporting allies under Chinese pressure. If China blockades or invades Taiwan, or threatens other regional partners, Australia might contribute ground forces to multinational coalitions defending these countries. American, Japanese, and Allied forces would conduct the primary combat operations, but Australian armored and artillery units could provide critical reinforcements. Korean equipment ensures that Australian forces can integrate seamlessly into these coalitions and contribute meaningfully to combined operations. The K9 Thunder artillery is particularly significant in this context. Modern warfare is increasingly about precision fires, identifying targets quickly and engaging them with accurate, long-range weapons before they can maneuver or hide. The K9's 40-kilometer range means Australian artillery can engage Chinese forces from positions that are difficult for China to target. The automated fire control and rapid deployment mean Australian batteries can support multiple missions across wide areas, providing fire support to Allied forces that lack their own artillery or need reinforcement. Chinese military planners pay close attention to artillery because the People's Liberation Army doctrine emphasizes massed fires. In a Taiwan scenario, Chinese artillery would attempt to suppress Taiwanese and Allied air defenses, destroy command posts, disrupt logistics, and support ground operations. Countering this requires friendly artillery that can outrange, outshoot, and outmaneuver Chinese systems. The K9 gives Australia exactly that capability. The K2 Black Panther's advanced fire control and armor protection also pose significant problems for Chinese armored forces. The People's Liberation Army operates a large fleet of tanks including the Type 99A, which is a capable vehicle but not as technologically sophisticated as the K2. In head-to-head engagements, K2 tanks would have significant advantages in target acquisition, first-shot accuracy, and survivability. This isn't about Australian tanks conquering China. It's about making any Chinese ground operation so costly that Beijing has to reconsider whether military action is worth the price. There's also a crucial deterrence dimension. Military capability that remains unused still shapes adversary behavior. If Beijing knows that Australian ground forces are equipped with state-of-the-art Korean tanks, artillery, and infantry fighting vehicles, it must factor these capabilities into operational planning for any Indo-Pacific contingency. Chinese generals can't ignore the possibility that Australian armored forces might deploy to contested areas and engage Chinese troops. This complicates Chinese planning, increases operational risks, and potentially deters aggression. The logistics of projecting Chinese ground power across the Indo-Pacific also favor Australia. Moving thousands of troops and hundreds of armored vehicles across the ocean requires amphibious ships, air transport and logistics infrastructure that China is still building. Even if China successfully lands forces somewhere in the first island chain, those forces would be operating at the end of long, vulnerable supply lines subject to interdiction by American and Allied naval and air forces. Meanwhile, Australian forces can deploy from secure bases with shorter logistics chains and the support of allies throughout the region. The combined arms integration of Korean equipment is also important. Modern warfare requires tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, artillery, air defense, and logistics to work as a synchronized system. Korean defense companies design their equipment to operate together. K2 tanks, K9 howitzers, and Redback IFVs share common components, use integrated command and control systems, and train together. This means the Australian Army can field balanced, combined arms formations rather than piecemeal collections of incompatible equipment. China's military modernization has been impressive, but the People's Liberation Army ground force still faces significant weaknesses. Chinese armored forces have limited combat experience. Most Chinese equipment, while numerous, is a generation behind the cutting edge. Chinese combined arms doctrine is improving but still developing. Chinese logistics and sustainment capabilities remain questionable for sustained high-intensity operations far from Chinese territory. These are exactly the areas where Korean equipment gives Australia qualitative advantages. The psychological impact matters too. Australian troops equipped with K2 tanks aren't going into battle wondering if their equipment can match the enemy's. They know they have technological superiority. They know their systems have been tested and proven. That confidence translates into combat effectiveness in ways that are difficult to quantify but absolutely real on the battlefield. There's also a regional signaling dimension. Other Indo-Pacific countries are watching Australia's military build-up carefully. If Australia can successfully acquire and field advanced Korean equipment, others will follow. South Korea is already supplying weapons to Poland, Egypt, and other countries looking to modernize their forces. Australia's partnership with Seoul validates Korean defense exports and creates opportunities for other countries to pursue similar deals. This strengthens the network of countries capable of deterring Chinese aggression and complicates Beijing's strategic calculations. Chinese state media has been notably critical of Australia's Korean arms purchases, which tells you everything about how seriously Beijing takes this development. Chinese military analysts have written articles about the threat posed by K2 tanks and K9 artillery, emphasizing the need for countermeasures. Chinese diplomats have tried to characterize the deals as destabilizing and provocative. This is psychological projection. China is uncomfortable because Australian military modernization directly threatens Chinese operational plans. The $7 billion Australia is spending on Korean equipment is a fraction of what China spends annually on its military, roughly $230 billion by official Chinese figures, likely much higher in reality. But effectiveness isn't about matching spending dollar for dollar. It's about acquiring the right capabilities for the specific scenarios you're likely to face. Australia has made a calculated bet that modern tanks, artillery, and infantry fighting vehicles optimized for high-intensity warfare in Indo-Pacific geography are exactly the right capabilities for deterring Chinese aggression. And Beijing knows Australia is right. The strategic environment is clear. China's military expansion threatens the rules-based order that has kept the Indo-Pacific stable and prosperous for decades. Small and medium powers like Australia can't individually match Chinese military might, but they can make aggression prohibitively costly by fielding highly capable forces integrated into a broader alliance network. Korean equipment provides the capability. The American alliance provides the strategic backing. Australian resolve provides the willingness to fight if necessary. The final piece is industrial sustainability. Wars aren't won just by the forces you have at the start, they're won by the ability to replace losses, repair damage, and sustain operations over time. South Korea's willingness to establish local production in Australia means the Australian defense industry can support these systems during extended conflicts. If war lasts months or years, Australia won't be dependent on shipments from Seoul that might be interdicted or delayed. This sovereign capability is strategically priceless. China's worst-case scenario looks something like this. A Taiwan crisis erupts. American forces engage Chinese naval and air assets. Japan activates its military to defend its territory. Australia deploys naval forces including nuclear submarines to threaten Chinese sea lanes. And Australian ground forces equipped with Korean tanks and artillery deploy to strategic locations across the first island chain, creating additional obstacles that Chinese forces must overcome. Every additional capability, every additional ally, every additional obstacle increases the costs and risks of Chinese aggression until the calculus tips decisively against military action. That's deterrence. That's why Australia is spending billions on Korean firepower. Not to start a war with China, but to make sure China doesn't start one with anyone else.